They look at it and it's like, oh, it's not a red flag, it's orange. It becomes a very infantilizing place to be in a relationship. And who think in that way and speak in that way. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hannah. I am a trauma coach, physician associate, and this is my YouTube channel. I make videos about my self-improvement journey and talking head advice videos like this for your self-improvement journey as a Muslimah. I kept getting requests to make this video, and I only have a bit of time, so I am going to jump right into it. This video is about red flags and things to avoid when looking for a husband. I'm very passionate about this because it has been my experience when thinking about so many of the women around me who have been through a divorce. When I had asked them if they knew early on or before they got married whether or not this was a good idea, there were so many of them that said there were certain things that stood out that made it, in many cases, very clear that this was not a man who was worth marrying because of social pressure or convoluted advice they were getting from people who really didn't know how to give marriage advice that had the best interest of both parties involved. They ended up in a situation that led to very regretful results. It is important to say that these are my own personal opinions to an extent. Although I do think that they have a lot of evidence, even based in the Quran and Sunnah, they are still my opinions. I've seen too many women who, when it comes to the red flag conversation, they look at it and it's like, oh, it's not a red flag, it's orange, right? It looks a bit like if you mix in some blue there, maybe it can look like a green flag. No. We're just going to jump right into it because I care about you ladies and I want you guys to make a decision that is wise for your future. So without further ado, these are 7 red flags that you should keep an eye out for. Red flag number 1 is when you're talking in the talking stages or the getting to know stages, and he makes it clear that he doesn't really intend to meet your father, or he says something along the lines of like, oh, much further on. Now, let me be clear about this. For a lot of men, they're not comfortable meeting the father upright. And it makes sense because speaking to a father means like, hey, this is serious. And you guys might just have met each other. You might be speaking through an app. You might have been introduced through a family member or a friend. So it doesn't make sense to take that step where things are so serious and solidified and things might get announced and there are celebrations happening before you even know if you're going to move forward with this. So that I don't see a big problem with. But what I do see a big problem with is when a man makes it very clear that like, yeah, he is interested, but he keeps delaying the bringing it up to your dad. You don't have to have everything together. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even mandates that Muslim women have a wali is for the protection, so that she's not being dragged through the waiting process and, other options are not being waived because someone else is too afraid to step up and speak to her father. So that's a major red flag in my opinion. Red flag number 2 is a man who doesn't pray his salah, in my humble opinion. And people might, get upset that I'm mentioning this one, but let me explain and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. The Prophet ﷺ said that every person is a shepherd and in charge of a flock, and they will be asked about their flock on the day of judgment, and that a man is the shepherd for his family, meaning his wife, and if he has children, his children. Essentially, a man is supposed to be the spiritual leader of the home. He's a shepherd. What does a shepherd do, right? A shepherd is in charge of taking care of a flock of sheep. They are in charge of making sure that it's protected and it's safe and they know what to do and, they're guided in the right direction and it's protecting them from the possibility of predators. How is a husband going to be a spiritual leader in his home if he doesn't even do the basic fard of praying his 5 salah? And I'm not talking about someone who's doing it, but they're struggling and they're genuinely trying to get better. I'm talking about someone who doesn't do it at all. I'm sorry. If you're a man who is a Muslim man looking for a good Muslim woman, and you can't even meet that basic requirement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires of every single one of us indiscriminately, then you need to not worry about your relationship with a woman, and you need to worry about your relationship with Allah first. You need to get that settled before you jump into a relationship with a Muslim woman. Red flag number 3 is he is not financially stable. And let me finish. Let me talk. Financial stability looks different for different people. When I say he's not financially stable, what I mean is that he either presently does not have the financial capacity to take care of a family. The husband is the financial guarantor of the family, meaning his job is to make sure that they are financially provided for. That doesn't always mean that he's the one fully providing. So for example, if you are a student and you get married as a student, it might be that your father, for example, agrees to help for a certain period of time. I'm not speaking about men who are genuinely trying or have a plan for financial stability. What I'm talking about is the number of Muslim men who don't like to work, are lazy, jump from job to job, see it as like, okay, I'm going to do what I want when I want, and they don't take it seriously. And in that instance, now the wife is being forced to work. On a side note, any man who expects his wife to take him seriously when he's not able to fulfill that is honestly kidding himself. Again, not talking about the men who are trying. I'm talking about the men who defy this intentionally. So if he's giving you that vibe, sis, run the other direction, because he's looking at you as a piggy bank and nothing more than that. The next one might ruffle a lot of feathers, so hear me out in what I'm saying and how I'm explaining it, okay? Number 4, red flag number 4 is a man who has rules for his wife. Now, 1 second, guys. Don't jump to the comments just yet. You can have preferences. You can have norms. You can have expectations of your spouse. Completely normal. And in fact, you should. That is how relationships are built. And Islam has expectations and norms and things that we are expected to do as Muslim wives for our husbands, point blank, period. And if you have any trouble with that, you have to turn inward and work on yourself and ask yourself, why is it that you're having such a difficult time submitting to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But when I say a man who has rules for his wife, I'm saying a man who specifically says, I have rules for my wife. The reason why is I have rules for my kids. I have rules for my students, right? I have rules for my employees if I run a business. Rules are meant to keep people in line. If you can frame that your expectations as rules, you're telling me that you don't see your wife as an equal to you. And when I say equal to you, we have different roles and responsibilities in Islam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala values the contribution of a wife and a contribution of the husband and their contribution to the family equally. So if you have this, if you meet a man who has this idea that they need to run their marriage like they're a CEO of a business, that's problematic because it doesn't allow for healthy communication between one another. It creates a power dynamic that is very stringent. It becomes a very infantilizing place to be in a relationship. So mind men who think in that way and speak in that way. You should always ask the question, what are your expectations of your wife? What are gender roles you would prefer to subscribe to in your marriage? You should ask those, and he has the right to have them, as do you. You have the right to have them, and I recommend very highly that you have them and you make sure that they are according to the Quran and Sunnah. My husband and I have them, and actually I would say we have very gender typical roles in the way that we operate our marriage, and it works very well for us, alhamdulillah. The way people say things a lot of times, and even the words they use to choose, is a window into their ideology about how things should operate. This is red flag number 5. Is a man is arguing with you in the getting to know stage. Major red flag, sis. Getting to know, right, is the purpose is, let me ask you pointed questions that are going to help me assess from a pretty practical point of view whether or not you would be a good partner, right? And then obviously there are elements of, do your personalities clash, or can you guys have a decent conversation? Are you attracted to the person? There are different elements of it that are important. But a man who you find in the getting to know stage, instead of going about it in a way where it's like, hey, let me just see if we're compatible and a good fit for each other, is getting into arguments, getting angry, taking things really personally. Major red flags. You guys aren't even married yet. There's a certain level when we're getting to know one another, we show our best selves, put our best foot forwards. If he's not able to do that, that means there's something seriously wrong with his emotional regulation and his emotional maturity. You're not able to have a discussion, something that easy triggers you and makes you that upset. guaranteed it will get 100 times worse if you end up married. Run away. Run the other direction. I've seen this so many times, and it always ends up badly. The next red flag is you meet a man who can't criticize himself. A man who doesn't criticize himself. Everything he does is perfect. Everything he does is right. He was previously married or previously engaged. It was always the other person's fault. Any mature individual should be able to say, this is where things went wrong, but this was my contribution to it. Even if it's a small one, we always have to be willing to take accountability, and an inability to be critical of your actions shows that you are not able to take accountability. Marriage is hard. You're going to make mistakes. I don't care how mature of an individual you are. There are going to be times, because there's an emotional intimacy aspect of it. There's vulnerability involved. And so because of that, things happen, arguments happen, fights happen. The repair process is the most important part of our marriages. But when those things happen, if you don't know how to step back and take accountability and think where you went wrong, then you're going to be in a situation as a woman, if you're with a man who's like that, where he's always pointing the finger at you, and now you're the one who's always wrong, and you're the one who's always doing something, and it becomes a very one-sided means of development, because now both of you guys aren't willing to work on your marriage because you're the one who's wrong, right? He thinks you're wrong, so you need to work on it. It's a very ugly place to be in a marriage. It's not fun. It makes you feel very lonely. Part of the job of the husband is to lift his woman up, to make her feel valued and loved. And even when she does make mistakes and, whatever challenges come up, to know that there is redemption at the end of the day. You can't do that with someone who is unable to criticize themselves. The last red flag that I will mention is he is someone who talks down to people or badly about people. It's pretty self-explanatory. The way he treats other people is a window into his character. And we tend to treat different types of people consistently with what we believe. So look at the way he treats people who he perceives as less than him, or maybe having less status than him, how he treats his parents, how he treats his siblings, how he treats his friends. If you find that he speaks down to people or badly about people, this is someone who doesn't have emotional intelligence. These people do not make good husbands. They do not, because they're going to do it to you. They're going to speak down to you. They're going to speak badly about, maybe not about you necessarily. Some, they might have at least some decency to not do that, but they're going to speak down to you, and it's going to break your spirit. And you do not want to be in a marriage where your spirit is being broken and you feel like you're not good enough. It is a horrible place to be. It will destroy you as a woman. And I have seen so many women who, coming out of, divorcing men who treated them like that, who are emotionally abusive and verbally abusive, and just completely shattered the spirit of this woman. The repair process is very difficult. And you always hear that voice in the back of your head telling you the things that he said to you. Try to avoid those men at all costs. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. Leave your comments below of what your thoughts are. Any other red flags that you think that I missed, drop them in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you like this kind of self-improvement content for Muslim women, then please, please, please subscribe for more. Assalamu alaikum, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.